More than 8,000 flights have been disrupted and cancelled across the UK as London Heathrow Airport closes after a substation fire.
EU leaders failed to endorse Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas's plan to bolster Ukraine's defenses at the European Council summit in Brussels.
More than 1,000 flights are being disrupted at London's Heathrow Airport, the UK's largest and one of Europe's busiest, after a fire at an electrical substation caused a power outage. According to flight tracking data, at least 1,350 flights will be impacted at the airport. The London Fire Brigade said 10 fire engines and around 70 firefighters were called to the scene on Thursday night. Authorities have urged passengers not to travel to the airport under any circumstances until it is reopened. Heathrow has said the closure would last until midnight on Friday. Officials said the power outage was sparked when a transformer within an electrical substation in West London caught fire. Heathrow's airport handles more than 80 million passengers a year, and the operator says there are around 1,300 takeoffs or landings each day.
A major plan by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas to send urgent military aid of up to €40 billion to Ukraine failed to get off the ground at an EU summit in Brussels. The plan includes sending €5 billion on 2 million rounds of ammunition, as well as air defence systems, missiles, drones and fighter jets. But President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, said Ukraine will be funded for 2025 due to, among other things, the Commission's rearm plan adopted weeks prior.
We have a very good exchange with President Zelensky, and we reaffirm our full support to Ukraine. As you remember, we have our last two councils was dedicated on defense. The brainstorming day and last 6th of March, we have a discussion and we welcome and approve the package proposed by the European Commission to increase our defense spending. And now with these instruments, I believe that all the other member states or the different member states will increase their pledges to continue to support Ukraine.
Also on the agenda was Europe's need to boost competitiveness and innovation amid sluggish growth and the spectre of a trade war triggered by US President Donald Trump's tariff announcements. Earlier on, the EU said it was delaying until mid-April retaliatory tariffs against sector-specific targets in the US. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the decision was made to allow for more negotiations with the White House.
We are in principle opposed to tariffs. We think that tariffs are bad. They are like taxes. They are bad for consumers. They are bad for business on both sides of the Atlantic without any question. We are in active discussion with the US administration on this issue, and I can confirm that we decided to adjust the timing of the entry into force of tariffs. The impact of our response does not change.
EU leaders also said they deplored the resumption of violence in Gaza, where over 500 people have been killed by Israeli airstrikes, many of whom were children. They called for the ceasefire to be put back on track, for the hostages to be released without condition, and for humanitarian aid to be allowed back into the enclave. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Ukraine's President Zelensky said the country's nuclear power plants belonged to the people of Ukraine while speaking during a visit to Norway on Thursday. On Wednesday, during a call between Zelensky and Trump, the US leader suggested to Zelensky that Ukraine give the US ownership of its power plants for security, according to a White House statement.
Всі атомні електростанції належить народу України. Це державні атомні електростанції, це у нас це не приватна власність. Енергетика, атомка в Україні, так.
Meanwhile, in a speech to the European Council on Thursday, Zelensky asked for at least €5 billion in support as soon as possible in order to bolster Ukraine's defences and urge Europe to continue pressuring Russia to achieve a durable peace.
What Russian president wants is not only the actual annexation of territories, but loyal regimes and full Russification of countries and nations, says Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. She told Euronews that although the protest movement in her country had to go mostly underground, it only means people are getting ready to uprise in the right moment.
You know, for sure, what we see in Belarus, it's a creeping occupation, and it is done with allowance of Lukashenko, who is Putin's puppet. Lukashenko is ready to sell our sovereignty, sell our independence, our country to Russia just to stay in power. And it hasn't happened like recently. We see the process of Russification. You know what Putin is trying to do? It's for Belarus, for example, it's not about physical annexation, it's about keeping a loyal government in power. This is what they want in Ukraine, actually, as well.
You said that it is hard to also foresee what can happen as long as Lukashenko is in Belarus. Do you think it's going to be the same if, hypothetically, Putin is no longer in power?
Of course, something can happen in Russia, and hence it will be a weaker Lukashenko, and people will uprise again. You know, it might be a victory of Ukraine. It also will weaken Putin and weaken Lukashenko. But the changes in Russia can start from changes in Belarus as well. There are more possibilities to change regime in Belarus than in Russia. You know, all these constant repressions that we are going through for almost 5 years already haven't made people to forget or to forgive or to deny their pro-European perspectives, pro-democratic. And so our movement inside the country, it of course now went mostly underground, but of course it hasn't disappeared. While Lukashenko is still detaining people every day. Every day 15, 20 people are detained because he knows that as only he stops, there will be massively people on the streets. He behaves as if still thousands of people standing in front of his palace. Visible quietness on the country doesn't mean that people gave up. It means that people are preparing and they will be ready when there will be possibility.
Thousands of protesters gathered outside Istanbul City Hall for a second consecutive night to protest against the arrest of Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. The Istanbul mayor, a prominent political opponent of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was arrested after a dawn raid of his residence on Wednesday. He's being investigated for corruption, with prosecutors accusing him of exploiting his position for financial gain, as well as terror links. But protesters believe the move is politically motivated.
Çok fazla hukuksuzluk var, evet. Nereye doğru gittiği de çok belirsiz ve hani bunu da artık yapmazlar dediğimiz her şey de yapıldığı için aslında.
Opposition lawmakers have accused Erdogan of usurping the will of the people by attempting to eliminate his key political rival. This week, Istanbul University nullified İmamoğlu's diploma, citing irregularities in his 1990 transfer from a private university in northern Cyprus. The decision, if it holds, would bar the Istanbul mayor from running for president in the next election, as the law requires the office holder to possess a university degree. Students have rushed to İmamoğlu's defense as concerns mount over the reliability of their own education.
Birinin başına gelebiliyorsa benim de başıma gelebileceği yönünde. Ben de öğrenciyim, ben de okuyorum. Yarın öbür gün hukuksuz bir şekilde malım, mülküm, diplomam elimden alınsaydı arkamda çıkacak insanlar olsun isterdim, o yüzden buradayım.
The main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, to which İmamoğlu belongs, say Erdogan's actions amount to a coup. The arrest came just days before he was expected to be nominated as the CHP presidential candidate in the party's Sunday primary. Erdogan vehemently rejects accusations leveled against him, denying any involvement in the judicial process, which he stresses is independent. But many protesters remain unconvinced and have vowed to continue their demonstrations.
Every year, participants from around the world, including government ministers in the energy sector, gather at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, BETD, to discuss a safe, affordable and environmentally friendly global energy transition. Speaking with Euronews at this year's summit, the outgoing German Vice-Chancellor and Minister for Economic Affairs and Climate Protection, Robert Habeck, called on politicians to put climate crisis back on the political agenda.
Es muss doch möglich sein, dass eine Gesellschaft nicht nur durch Katastrophen lernt, sondern einfach auch durch Nachdenken, durch kognitive Anstrengung. Deswegen, die Lektionen sind alle da. Der Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue hat das nochmal aufgefächert. Sicherheit, Preise, Klimaneutralität, alles spricht dafür, dieses Thema jetzt nach vorne zu bringen und am Erfolg anzuknüpfen, auf dem Erfolg aufzubauen. Also beantworte ich es in einem Satz so, es braucht Politikerinnen und Politiker, die wissen, was die Stunde geschlagen hat und es den Menschen der Öffentlichkeit immer wieder erklären. Und diese Menschen braucht es auch in den Medien, die immer wieder die richtigen Fragen stellen.
He praised the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen for her leadership. He, however, called for comprehensive reform to ensure unity across the board in Europe.
Also eigentlich braucht Europa eine echte Reform seiner Institutionen. Das Einstimmigkeitsprinzip muss überwunden werden. Wir brauchen Mehrheitsentscheidungen im Rat, auch in der Außen-, Sicherheits- und Finanzpolitik. Ich würde sagen, dass Europa eine eigene finanzpolitische Autonomie braucht, also selber die Möglichkeit hat, Geld einzunehmen. Und dann gilt der amerikanische Spruch, no taxation without representation or legislation. Das heißt, es braucht dann irgendwann auch eine eigene Gesetzgebungskompetenz durch volles Mandat. Wir müssen uns also auf den Weg machen zu einer echten föderalen Europäischen Republik. Das heißt, die Kommission muss am Ende richtig gewählt werden. Das Parlament muss ein echtes Parlament sein.
Habeck stepped down as leader of the Greens following the party's loss in the February polls. Despite the setback, Germany's Greens helped push through a major spending package that included a special fund of 100 billion euros for climate protection.